So with the third thing that people can mean by Christian nationalism, where ethnicity gets involved, that's where the recent rise of anti-Semitism in conservative circles comes up. And that's been a surprising thing, I think, to everybody my age and older, and probably to people a full generation younger than me too, and maybe even to the people to whom it happened. I don't know, but it seems like a scary paradigm shift in the world, that after World War II, you think it's gone, but now it's coming back, and it's being associated with conservatism, and even with Christian conservatism. And I think that one reason, pendulums, right? Pendulums swing. And the pendulum after the Holocaust, it swung. Like it swung way too far. You had dispensationalism in the Protestant churches, which started in the 19th century, but then got a major shot in the arm with the founding of the State of Israel in 1948, because according to their interpretation of biblical prophecy, they need to have an actual State of Israel. And suddenly there was one for the first time in 19 centuries, or almost 19 centuries. And so it seemed like proof of their exegesis. And then everybody had this sort of like mass cultural guilt, or at least horror, if not guilt, about the Holocaust. And so in the Protestant churches, dispensationalism completely reversed the relations that the Christians and Jews have had throughout all of history. Like in the New Testament, Christians and Jews are antagonists. Like, despite the fact that most of the main characters in the New Testament are Jews, in the Gospel of John, the word is used, the Jews. Like, it doesn't say the Jewish leaders, it says the Jews. It's used as Jesus, it's used to denote Jesus' enemies and critics and the people who crucified him. And that is a testament. That is a testament to the fact that by the time the fourth gospel is written, already the Christian church has gone out to the nations. The Jewish Christians, the followers of Jesus who recognize him as their Messiah, the Israelites who recognized him faithfully to be their Messiah, they have gone to the Gentiles and they have accepted the nations in like a flood, like the prophet said was going to happen, that the nations were going to come to Jerusalem and worship the God of Israel. That happened. And so you have already, by the time the fourth gospel is written, around 70 or maybe later than that, but still in the first century, this distinction where the people who call themselves Jews are the ones who reject Jesus, and the Jews who accept Jesus, they'll call themselves Israel. So like that was basically the division. We are Israel. We're true Israelites, like Jesus says in John chapter 1, here is an Israelite without guile. They'll call themselves Israelites because the church is the true Israel. It starts with a bunch of Jews who believe in Jesus, and then all these Gentiles come in from all points of the compass. A multitude comes from the east and the west, right, to sit at the feast of salvation. And that doesn't mean it stops being Israel. Like that is the true Israel. It planted with the seed of Jesus Christ, and the apostles were all Israelites. It continues being Israel. The Gentiles just become Israel. And you have the Israel of God, as Paul says in Galatians, and then you've got the Jews. And that's how the terminology shakes down as early as the Gospel of John. And so there is antagonism between them. And sometimes this antagonism, as will happen, because people are sinners, boiled over into violence and pogroms and that kind of thing. But after the Holocaust, because it was the most organized and deadliest and scariest pogrom that the world's ever seen, after the Holocaust, like all of those things were the only thing that many Christians would remember about the relationship between the Jews and the church. Despite the fact that the New Testament is constantly telling you what happened back then. So you have this sort of subservience to the Jews, subservience to Israel, like it's my Christian duty to look out for Israel, to look out for the Jews. I remember when I was a child growing up in dispensationalist circles, when I was, around 10 or 12 or something like that. sort of like fantasizing about what I would do if there was a Jew being picked on the playground, how I would stand up for him and I would fight for him, whatever. And I read an article, 20 years ago, maybe more, about a kibbutz in Israel, and there was a church group from the United States coming to work in the kibbutz. And it's like they weren't coming to evangelize, they were just coming to like help them with the harvest or something like that. And maybe they thought it would be some kind of Christian testimony that would help move the Jews closer to Jesus. Maybe that's what they were thinking when they came. But the person writing the article interviewed the kibbutz owner. He's like, well, what do you think about these Christians doing this? It's like, what are your thoughts about that? And he's like, well, the prophet said that the Gentiles would serve us. It's like, okay, you're not evangelizing this guy at all. No, you're just hardening him in his rejection of Jesus. And so, and in the Roman Catholic Church, it's like in Vatican II, they basically came this close to saying, stop evangelizing the Jews, they're fine as they are. And that's kind of been like a hands-off attitude toward the Jews. Adversus Judaeos, the whole church against the Jews polemic it just disappears for a couple generations after the Holocaust. So that's a pendulum swing, and now it's swinging back. And that's indefensible. Like all that stuff is indefensible, scripturally, historically indefensible. And you have young people waking up to that fact, and you have provocateurs twisting it and making it worse than it is, and making it support, like Aryan nation or neo-Nazi narratives instead of the actual narrative of the New Testament, which is good enough. If you have a New Testament understanding of the split between the true Israel, the church, and the Jews, then you are set to say all the right things and parse it all correctly and still behave like a decent human being and show Christian love to your Jewish neighbors. And that's what we want. And basically we're just, I think in this resurgence of anti-Semitism, we're just reaping the whirlwind from all that bad theology and tiptoeing around the issue that was done in the second half of the 20th century. But it's bad. It's like we don't want, you could say, oh, this pendulum swing is what we deserve. Okay, but we don't want it. We don't want any of the extremes of this pendulum. We want to be in the middle where the truth is and where we can love our neighbor.